You come home, and the couch is destroyed. Not a little chewed, destroyed. The stuffing is across the floor, the fabric is in strips, and your dog is sitting in the middle of it all looking not guilty, actually. Just exhausted, like something spent him from the inside out. And your first thought is, why would he do this? Your second thought, if you're being honest, is he knew. He knew it was wrong, and he did it anyway. I want to talk to you today about why that second thought, the one that feels so obvious, so logical, is almost certainly wrong. And why getting it wrong has consequences that are bigger than a ruined couch. Because here's what's actually happening in your pet's body and brain when these moments occur. And once you understand it, you cannot unsee it. This video is going to take a little while. Get comfortable, because this is one of those topics where the shortcut explanation does real damage, and the animals in our homes deserve better than a shortcut. Let's start with the story most of us were told. Animals left to their own devices are lazy and opportunistic. They will steal food if you're not watching. They'll destroy things out of boredom. They'll urinate in the wrong places to get back at you for something you did or didn't do. And the solution in this story is simple: be firm. Be consistent. Show them who's in charge. This story has been around for a long time. It's in old training manuals, old pet magazines, old advice from well-meaning family members who raised dogs in the 70s and swear by the rolled-up newspaper. It has a satisfying internal logic. Animal acts up, owner corrects, order is restored. Everyone knows their place. The problem is that this story is built on a foundation that modern behavioral science has quietly demolished, piece by piece, over the last 30 years. Not every piece. Structure matters. Consistency matters. Animals absolutely learn through consequence. But the core premise that misbehavior is chosen, calculated, willful, that part is wrong. Not a little wrong. Fundamentally, neurologically, physiologically wrong. And the cost of believing it is paid by the animal. When your dog chews the couch, or your cat stops using the litter box, or your rabbit thumps and bites, or your bird screams for hours, your pet is not making a choice in any meaningful sense of that word. They are in a state of biological emergency. Their stress hormone system has been activated. Their cortisol levels are elevated. Their heart rate is up. The part of their brain responsible for calm, deliberate decision-making has essentially gone offline, and the ancient survival circuitry underneath it has taken over completely. They are not thinking, I'm going to ruin this couch to teach my owner a lesson. They are thinking, if we can even call it thinking, something closer to, I cannot bear this. I need this to stop. Move, press, chew, do something, make it stop. The chewing isn't revenge. It's self-medication. It's the only tool available to a nervous system that has been pushed past its limits. Let me walk you through what's actually happening inside your pet's body during one of these episodes. Because it matters. When any mammal, dog, cat, rabbit, human perceives a threat, a very specific chain of events gets triggered. The hypothalamus sends a signal. The adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline. The heart speeds up. The muscles tense. Blood gets redirected away from digestion and toward the limbs. And here's the key part, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning, planning, impulse control, and deliberate decision-making. It goes partially offline. The limbic system, which is older, faster, and entirely concerned with survival, takes over. This is the same in every mammal. This is not a dog thing or a cat thing. This is a mammal thing. This is a you thing when you're in genuine fear. When you're flooded with panic, you don't make great decisions either. You react. You do things that don't make logical sense. You say things you do mean. Your body takes over from your mind. Your pet doesn't have the verbal ability to tell you this is happening. They don't have the social skills to say, I'm overwhelmed, I need help. What they have is behavior. And the behavior they produce in these states looks from the outside exactly like what we have decided to call misbehaving. Separation anxiety alone, just that one condition, affects somewhere between 14 and 29% of the domestic dog population worldwide. That's not a fringe diagnosis. That's potentially 1 in 5 dogs. And the behaviors it produces: howling when left alone, destroying things near doors and windows, urinating or defecating indoors despite being house-trained, injuring themselves trying to escape, refusing to eat during the owner's absence. Every single one of those behaviors is something we commonly punish. And punishment, I want you to really hear this, punishment makes separation anxiety worse. Every major veterinary behavior organization in the world agrees on this. When you punish an animal for behavior that is driven by anxiety, you don't reduce the anxiety. You add another layer of threat to an already threatening situation. The anxiety grows. The behavior either gets suppressed on the surface while intensifying underneath, or it finds a new, often worse outlet. I want to spend a moment on the spite thing, because it comes up constantly. It's probably the most persistent misinterpretation in pet behavior, and it causes a lot of harm. Your house-trained dog urinated on your bed while you were at work. You were gone longer than usual. You came home, saw it, and something in your brain said, he did this on purpose. He's mad at me for leaving. He's punishing me. Here is what spite actually requires from a cognitive standpoint. It requires your dog to have formed an intention, specifically the intention to cause you distress. It requires him to identify which action would cause you the most distress. It requires him to hold that intention in memory across hours of your absence. And it requires him to execute the plan at the right moment for maximum effect. Dogs are cognitively extraordinary in many ways. Their social intelligence is remarkable. Their ability to read human emotion and intention is genuinely impressive and well documented. But this level of premeditated retaliatory planning, the research does not support it. It is not something dogs do. What the research does support is this: during your long absence, your dog's anxiety built to an unbearable level. The place in your home where your scent is most concentrated, your bed, your worn clothing, your pillow, became simultaneously the source of the greatest distress and the only available comfort. The body's response to extreme stress is not always controllable. The sphincter, like the rest of the autonomic nervous system, responds to fear. Your dog didn't choose to urinate on your bed. The emergency chose for him. There was no spite. There was only a frightened animal doing the only thing available. And if you came home and punished him for it, he didn't connect the punishment to the urination that happened 3 hours ago. That connection requires a temporal reasoning capacity dogs don't possess in that way. What he learned was, when my owner comes home after a long absence, something bad happens. The very moment he most needed to experience as safe, your return became another source of fear. The next time you left, his anxiety was higher, not lower. Let's talk about cats for a moment, because cats have a particular problem, which is that their anxiety tends to be invisible until it becomes impossible to ignore. Cats are culturally coded as independent, aloof, self-sufficient. We admire them precisely because they seem to not need us that much. And this image has made it extraordinarily easy to dismiss the very real distress signals they're producing constantly. The cat who hides under the bed for 3 days after you move to a new apartment, that's not the cat being dramatic. That's a territorial animal experiencing a complete loss of environmental security. Their scent map, the invisible landscape through which cats navigate their world, has been entirely erased. Everything is unfamiliar. Everything is potentially dangerous. Hiding is not drama. Hiding is the appropriate survival response to a genuine threat. The cat who stops using the litter box, and this is really important, may be experiencing actual physical pain. There is a condition called feline idiopathic cystitis. It's an inflammatory condition of the bladder. There is no infection, no stone, no identifiable physical cause. The current consensus in veterinary medicine is that it is directly caused by psychological stress. The bladder wall becomes inflamed as a direct response to elevated cortisol. Urination becomes painful. A cat who is urinating outside the litter box may be doing so because the litter box has become associated with pain. They're not being difficult. They're avoiding a place that hurts. Punishing this cat, which is what almost every casual internet advice column will tell you to do, is the equivalent of punishing a person for flinching away from something that burned them. Cats also show distress in ways we tend to read as personality rather than symptom. The cat who suddenly becomes clingy when they were never clingy before. The cat who stops eating for a few days. The cat who starts over-grooming, licking and licking the same patch of fur until it's bald and raw. The cat who begins waking you up at 3 in the morning with vocalizations that sound genuinely distressed. These are not personality traits. These are clinical signs. They are the cat's version of raising their hand and saying, something is wrong. I am not okay. Before we go further, I want to briefly mention the animals who are most systematically overlooked in this conversation. Rabbits, guinea pigs, birds, hamsters, small animals. We have a cultural tendency to think of these animals as simple, as low maintenance. They live in a cage or a hutch. They eat pellets. They don't need much. This is almost entirely false. Rabbits are highly social prey animals with nervous systems finely tuned for detecting threat. The same sensitivity that allowed their wild ancestors to survive in a world full of predators makes them acutely vulnerable to chronic stress in domestic environments. Sudden loud noises, unpredictable handling, isolation from other rabbits, these things don't just upset rabbits. They can kill them. Rabbits can die of acute fright. Cardiac arrest from a single severe scare is a documented cause of death in rabbits. That is how reactive their nervous systems are. Guinea pigs kept alone, which many people do, not knowing better, can develop chronic low-grade anxiety that suppresses their immune system and predisposes them to respiratory infections and digestive disorders. They need companionship, not human companionship substituting for guinea pig companionship. Actual other guinea pigs. And parrots. Oh, parrots. Parrots are kept as pets in conditions that, if we applied the same conditions to dogs, would be considered obvious neglect. Many parrots, animals with the cognitive complexity of a 5-year-old child, capable of genuine emotional attachment, capable of grief, capable of boredom so acute it causes psychological damage. Many parrots spend their lives in a cage with minimal social interaction. The feather-destructive behavior you see in these birds, the plucking, the self-mutilation, is not a quirk. It is a compulsive response to psychological suffering so severe that the animal injures themselves to manage it. And we call it a behavioral problem. Here is the part that's hardest to hear. In many cases, the anxiety we're dealing with in our pets is something we created. Not out of malice, not out of negligence even, but out of a combination of misinformation, cultural habit, and the simple human tendency to interpret animal behavior through the lens of human motivation. Let's look at some of the most common ways this happens. Inconsistency. Animals, especially dogs and cats, need predictability. Their nervous systems are calibrated to look for pattern because pattern means safety. An environment that is unpredictable, where the rules change, where the emotional climate swings dramatically, where sometimes the behavior is fine and sometimes the same behavior results in punishment, is chronically stressful. The animal can never fully relax because they can never be sure what will happen next. Low-grade, constant vigilance. That is anxiety. Punishment-based training. This one deserves more time than I'll give it here, but the short version is this. Any training method that uses pain, fear, or intimidation to suppress behavior creates a trade. You get the suppressed behavior on the surface. You pay for it with elevated chronic stress, damaged trust, and an animal who has learned that the relationship with their human is unpredictable and sometimes dangerous. The behavior may look better. The animal may be worse. Social isolation. Dogs are social animals in the deepest biological sense. They co-evolved with humans over tens of thousands of years specifically for closeness. The average dog in a modern city is left alone for 8, 9, 10 hours a day while their family is at work. This is not a minor inconvenience. For many dogs, this is like extended solitary confinement. The body responds to it the way any mammal's body responds to social isolation, with stress hormones, with behavioral dysregulation, with increasingly desperate attempts to manage the unmanageable. Early life experiences. Puppies separated from their mothers and littermates before 8 weeks of age show measurably higher rates of anxiety, fearfulness, and behavioral problems throughout their entire lives. Kittens not properly socialized in their first 2 months, exposed gently and positively to people, sounds, and environments, are significantly more likely to develop chronic fear responses. Animals from mills, from chaotic homes, from traumatic early experiences, their nervous systems were calibrated by those experiences. The anxiety they carry is not stubbornness. It is memory written in the body. I want to be very clear about something here. None of this is about blame. Most of the people who love their pets and inadvertently cause anxiety are doing what they were told, doing their best, operating on information that was simply wrong. The goal isn't guilt. The goal is now you know better. What do you do with that? One more overlooked category. Grief. Animals form genuine attachment bonds, not just with their human caregivers, but with other animals they live with. And when those animals die or disappear, the surviving animal grieves. Not metaphorically, not almost like grieving. They grieve with measurable behavioral and physiological changes that parallel human mourning in their structure. Dogs who lose a companion animal, another dog, a cat they lived with, sometimes even a different species, often show reduced activity, altered sleep patterns, loss of appetite, increased vocalizing, and something that behaviorists call searching behavior. They go to the places the absent animal used to sleep. They sniff where they used to eat. They wait by the doors. These changes can last weeks, sometimes months, and we often misread them completely. The dog who stops eating after the death of a companion animal is being picky. The dog who searches the house is confused. The dog who begins sleeping in unusual places or who follows the surviving human obsessively is being clingy. Cats do this too. The surviving cat in a multi-cat household where one cat has died often shows behavioral changes that get attributed to finally having the house to themselves, when what they are actually experiencing is the collapse of a social structure that gave their world meaning and safety. What helps? What you would want if you were grieving. Time, presence, patience, the safety to feel what you feel without being punished for it. Not a new companion rushed in to replace the one who died. That can actually increase distress significantly in the short term. Just stability, just someone being there, just the sense that the world is not entirely unpredictable even though something important in it has gone. Okay. So if punishment makes things worse and the behavior is driven by anxiety, and the anxiety is often something we've inadvertently contributed to, what do you actually do? First thing, if your pet shows a significant or sudden behavioral change, the first stop is the vet. Not a trainer, not the internet, the vet, because behavior is always in conversation with the body. The dog who suddenly begins urinating indoors might have a urinary tract infection. The cat who becomes aggressive might be in pain from a tooth abscess you can't see. The rabbit who stops eating might be in the early stages of gastrointestinal stasis, which is a medical emergency. Behavior is the only language animals have for the full range of their experience, physical and emotional. You have to rule out the physical first. For complex cases, genuine separation anxiety, severe noise phobia, compulsive disorders, significant aggression, a veterinary behaviorist is the gold standard. These are specialists with medical and behavioral training who can diagnose and treat anxiety with a combination of behavioral protocols and, where appropriate, medication. I know some people are uncomfortable with the idea of medicating an anxious pet. I understand that instinct, but think about it this way. If someone you loved was experiencing anxiety so severe that it was damaging their health, disrupting every part of their life, and causing them daily suffering, and there was a medication that could help, would you withhold it because it seemed unnatural? Medication for animal anxiety exists because the anxiety is real, because the suffering is real, and because sometimes behavior modification alone is not enough to shift the underlying biology. That's not weakness, that's medicine. Beyond the clinical, what can you do at home? Predictability. Create a daily rhythm your animal can anticipate. Same feeding times, same walk times, same basic structure of the day. Predictability signals safety. Safety reduces cortisol. Reduced cortisol means a calmer, more regulated animal. Environmental enrichment. This means different things for different species. For dogs, it means not just physical exercise, which we massively overemphasize, but cognitive engagement. Puzzle feeders, nose work, training sessions that build confidence rather than just demanding compliance. Sniffing. Sniffing is wildly underrated. For a dog, a 20-minute sniff walk through interesting terrain does more for their emotional regulation than a 40-minute run on a leash where they can't stop and investigate anything. For cats, it means vertical space, hiding spots, windows onto interesting things, separate resource areas, separate food bowls, separate litter boxes, separate resting spots in multi-cat households, so that no cat is ever forced into competition or confrontation to meet their basic needs. Agency. This is maybe the most underrated factor. The ability to make choices, even small ones, is profoundly calming to a nervous system under stress. An animal who can choose where to rest, when to approach, whether to engage or retreat, is a measurably less anxious animal than one who has no control over their experience. Build choices into your pet's day. Let them say no sometimes. The relationship can hold it. And last, and this is the biggest one, become someone your pet can trust. Not someone they fear. Not someone they perform for. Someone they trust. That means being consistent. It means responding to their distress signals with curiosity instead of frustration. It means learning their language, not expecting them to master yours, so that you can see the small signals before they become crises. It means understanding that the relationship itself is medicine. The research is clear on this. Animals in secure, responsive, consistent relationships with their caregivers have lower baseline stress hormones, recover faster from frightening experiences, explore more confidently, and show fewer behavioral problems across every category that's been studied. You are the environment. You are the most important variable. I want to close with something that I think matters. The animals in our homes did not choose to be there. They didn't negotiate the terms. They didn't agree to the apartment, the schedule, the noise, the other pets, the unpredictability. They adapted. They did the best they could with what they were given. And when adaptation fails, when the anxiety becomes more than they can hold, they communicate it the only way they know how. In behaviors, when we choose to read that behavior as defiance, as spite, as a power struggle to be won, we miss the whole conversation. We stand in front of a creature that is reaching toward us with everything it has, saying something is wrong, please help, and we respond with punishment. We confirm the thing they were most afraid of, which is that their world is not safe. The reframe I'm asking you to make is not soft. It's not about letting your pet do anything they want. It's about something much more demanding. It's about choosing to ask, what is happening to them? Before you ask, why are they doing this to me? It's about tolerating the uncertainty of not immediately knowing the answer and sitting in that uncertainty long enough to actually find out. Because the animals in our care deserve to be understood, not just managed. They deserve relationships in which their distress is met with something other than punishment. They deserve caregivers who know the difference between a broken couch and a broken nervous system. And once you can see that difference, you can't unsee it. Thanks for spending this time with me today. If this changed how you see your pet, even a little, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Take good care of your animals. They are trying so hard.